Magnificent Seven is directed by Antoine Fuqua and stars Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, Ethan Hawke, Vincent D'Onofrio, and a few others, and is actually a remake of a 1960 movie called also The Magnificent Seven, which that movie itself was also a remake of a 1950s movie called The Seven Samurai. Now I've never seen the original two films, because going into this one I didn't really expect much with it. I just kind of expected, your typical like Western where they're kind of adding a little bit more fun and everything. So I just went into it as that. And from what I was hearing was that a lot of people that are familiar with like the original movies, including the original Seven Samurai and the original 1960s version of the Magnificent Seven, really were kind of skeptical because of the fact that it was a remake and is directed by the same guy who brought us Training Day, Southpaw, The Equalizer, and a few others, but usually most people remember him from Training Day, which was the film that brought Denzel Washington on the that made Denzel Washington a superstar. And so I got really excited for this movie because not only do you have a great cast, but it's also a Western, so I figured, going into it, it looked like it would be a really cool, it looked like it was going back to the old days of how Westerns were, where, you got like that gritty kind of feel to it, but also keeping it very, humorous as well. So the story goes, you have this really small town where this guy played by Peter Sarsgaard comes in, and he's trying to take over the land and everything, and all of a sudden there's something that goes wrong where he's causing trouble around his murder and all kinds of problems in this town, that it's up to a girl played by Haley Bennett to encourage Denzel Washington's character to recruit these other six guys in order to take down Peter Sarsgaard's character and his men. So as the film progresses, as the film goes on, you start to see that Denzel Washington's character starts to recruit the other members of the Magnificent Seven, and you get to know their personalities. Like, Denzel Washington is a warrant officer it's similar to like how a bounty hunter does, because there's a scene that I won't spoil, but he does something similar like how they did in Django Unchained. And also there's Chris Pratt, who's the gambler, and he's a guy who's really good at cards. And you also have Ethan Hawke's character, who's kind of the more silent and more like mysterious kind. But him and his apprentice, or him and his friend, who's I forgot the actor's name, but this guy is good with knives. And then you have Vincent D'Onofrio's character, who's a trapper. And then you have the Indian, I forgot his name, but he's the one with the arrows. And so as you start to see as you start to see the team together, you start to realize that they have to work, that they're all working together, and they come from, you don't really know much about them as far as characters, but as the movie goes on, you start to see that they're pretty much they grow together and become friends. And I gotta tell you right now, this movie did surprise me a lot. I found it very enjoyable. I love the performances, especially Denzel Washington. I thought he was always great as usual. There's never a movie I've seen where Denzel has never done a bad performance, and here he really does shine, and you really get to see his character go through a lot of different ways of being a badass, and being the more straightforward type. And you also have Chris Pratt, who's the more like wisecracking comic relief of the group, and he does like a lot of tricks with his cards and everything that really cracked me up. And then you also have Ethan Hawke, who I thought was very interesting because he's very mysterious, and you don't really get to know much of his backstory until you find out later on during the film, which I really did like because you really get that kind of emotional side to himself. And then you also have the other characters, which are good, especially Vincent D'Onofrio. I thought he was funny, and every time he would say something, he would always be like preaching or something like that, and it just always cracked me up. You also have the other three people, which are good. It's just that we don't really know much of their story that much, other than like little details we see here and there about them. So overall, the top-notch performances from all the people in this movie. And I even liked Peter Sarsgaard. I thought that as a performance, I thought he was really good. He did get intense in a lot of parts, and I thought that he carried the villain role as it should be, as you typically see in these kind of Western films. And I also enjoyed, another thing I really enjoyed was the cinematography in this movie is outstanding. this movie really captures the Western a lot with the way it looks and the way that Antoine Fuqua sets up a lot of shots with the way you see a lot of the mountains and everything, and when you see a lot of the night scenes, it really captures the Old West pretty well. And the direction too, I thought was very fascinating, because even though the film is a PG-13, they do get away with a lot of brutal scenes that I didn't think they would put in this kind of movie. Like it's almost close to being R, and you really do see a lot of gunshots and everything where they do go a little into detail of seeing a lot more blood than you should. Not a lot too much, but they don't see a lot of blood. But when you do see the shootouts and everything, it's almost brutal in some parts. And another what I also enjoyed, what I also love as well, is the score by James Horner was really good. This was a score that, in a way, I don't know if this is me just like thinking of something else, but his score kind of reminds me of the music from Avatar. I mean, that's kind of weird, don't you think? It's because there are parts of the movie where it has like this music where I'm expecting like the Na'vi coming in, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it got me in seeing that kind of, it got me listening to that kind of vibe again, like I did off of Avatar. So I did like that. And now, one of my biggest praises of this film is that, unlike some other Western films that I've seen, this film actually takes a lot of vulnerability for some of its characters. Like, there are some parts in the film where I'm like, wow, they actually did that. I was really surprised by that. And when it goes along, you actually really get to know some of these characters, and you know, you are starting to see of how things unfold later on in the film. So I really do like the way they push the vulnerability with these guys. And now there are some issues I have, like for example, I didn't really think that Peter Sarsgaard character was very like I didn't really think he was very interesting. Like, he is intimidating on a performance level, but as a character, I just thought he was your typical villain, and they don't really spend a lot of time with him. I mean, he really is at the beginning, and then he comes back toward the end of the film. So that did bother me, because you know, you're not really seeing a lot of what he does as a villain that much. So that did bother me, but I mean, I still liked his performance, the way that he captured it, though. And another problem I had too is that the film just kind of felt really just, you know, it's very straightforward. You know, you're not really getting much, like, unlike some like other surprise, like other than what they do at the climax. I mean, it is your kind of a standard Western. Like, it doesn't really, the story itself is nothing really special that we haven't seen before countless times. But with the chemistry with the cast and everything, and the way that the film is shot and everything, and a lot of the music is what really holds the film for me. The rest, it's good, but it's not something I'm going to really like. I'm not going to say it's like one of the best Westerns, but at least it's something that I can say it's a good return to form than what we've had recently. And I kind of miss the Western genre. You know, it's sad that we don't really get to see these kind of films come out in the theaters anymore. So overall, yeah, those are like my only biggest cons as far as the Peter Sarsgaard character and the way the story goes. But other than that, I did enjoy the film, and I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Someday, I am actually might check out the other two movies, the original Seven Samurai and the Magnificent Seven. For those of you who have seen the original two movies and this one, what did you guys think? Comment below, and if you guys like what you see here, you can check me out on check out more of my videos here on YouTube, and you'll be seeing more reviews coming up here soon. I'll see you guys later.